Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
Your trauma isn't something that you have to get over. It's something that you have to get through. That'll come back in small echoes to test you. You really have to make a choice to be happy. I've been surrounded by such amazing things, whether it's my art or my music or my family. I've constantly just focused on that struggle and oh my God, I'm so tired and poor me. And it's no, man, everything's been there. Bright as day in front of you, a bunch of lovely, lovely gifts. And it was your attitude that held you back.
Today's love story belongs to Jasyn Lucas. He is an Indigenous Canadian painter whose art not only shares extraordinary beauty, but has provided him, as a 60s Scoop survivor, with profound healing. It's medicine for many and love in action. This is the Canadian Love Map. Well, hello, my friend. Good to see you again.
Tansei, hello. It's nice to see you again. Thank you so much for having me.
And good to hear you again. For those of our listeners who are just listening, of course, I am so excited to have this chat. And I want to say that I have told so many people about you, Jasyn. I should probably be your agent. What do you think?
Oh, okay. I'm in.
That was easy. That was an easy business negotiation.
I'm totally a yes man lately, and totally, that's a no-brainer. Okay, so we got that out.
Yeah, let's talk about that, being a yes man lately. It seems like the universe is throwing a lot of really interesting adventures your way.
Yes, it certainly has. Over the years, it's just snowballs and gets better and it gets more exciting. It gets harder too, definitely. And I've learned to embrace that. And I'm just being a yes man or trying to become more of a yes person is a big part of that. So certainly lots going on.
Yeah, I love that. I remember reading a book a few years ago about someone who said they just decided to say yes to life. And when you say yes, you never know what path it's going to take you down. I want to go back to the beginning of your path and talk about your birth and your childhood. And this is a fascinating part of your story, but it's also a tough part of your story to talk about. I know.
Yes, you bet. Over the years, it's always been there. You know, as an artist, even from a young age, you're constantly expressing yourself and exploring all these things, and then you realize that buried in all that activity was your individuality the whole time. And the older I got, the more I felt more kind of lost and kind of struggling to find that sort of direction in my life. And a lot of it was just sitting right there in front of me, like evidence in my artwork. looking back at that big body of work and activity that I did, you could see that the story is like the integral part of my work.
Mhm.
And if it's a part of my work, then it really had to become something that I was grew conscious of going, you know what, this isn't going anywhere. And it is part of my work and it's okay to talk about it. So I'd be more than happy to talk about it. It's an incredible story. It's been an incredible journey. So
Take me back to the beginning then.
first of all, my name is Jasyn Lucas. I was born Jasyn Biggity.
Mhm.
So I got two wonderful families. And at a very young age, I was born in Flin Flon and then fostered out into a foster home. And then before the age of 1, I was adopted into the Lucas family, which is a wonderful family growing up with. And you could talk about them more because I get a lot of my great qualities from them. And some of the other ones too. Families, just you learn over the years that it's never perfect, but to take those good things away and try and have a positive look at your experience, regardless how tough it might have been, has really been key for me. So I was a very young age that I was adopted out. And growing up with my family, the Lucas family, like my mom was my go-to, my support, Wendy Lucas. And she had always told me that I was adopted. And at a young age, you don't quite get it. But she would say, you have another family and you have a birth mom, so you didn't grow in my tummy, you grew in somebody else's tummy. And so growing up, it was kind of like, oh, that's kind of neat. I got two families and blah, blah, blah. And then as you get older, when I started getting to my teens and stuff, I realized there was parts of me that was kind of having these questions about, okay, well, who's my mom and who's my dad? All this started to come forefront. And then you realize, well, maybe this is something I should look into because there's something that doesn't quite feel right. I'm missing something in my life and I don't know what that is. And I think as a child, I was always very nervous, very shy. And looking back now, I could really see that I felt that from a very young age that I was somewhat out of place. I felt out of place. I felt different. And then, as soon as I get older into my later teens and adulthood, it really started to come forefront. But that's when my business started to take off. And I became really, really busy in kind of the noise of everything and what I thought success was going to look like for me as an artist. So looking into returning to any sort of family or trying to answer some of those questions was really tough because I was automatically just in the survival mode of just trying to make it as an entrepreneur. So a lot of that took a big back burner for many, many, many years. And I hid behind that veil of I'm okay, I'm successful, I'm doing all right. But really, I wasn't. So there was a few stages that came up in my life that went, you know what, Jasyn, you're not okay. And this is tough and you're going to have to figure this out. So that seems like a long answer.
No, I really appreciate your heart, your open heart and the way you talk about this. And I know, Jasyn, you mentioned having been fostered. When did you put the pieces together and learn about the circumstances of your fostering and what the 60s Scoop was all about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really didn't know about it growing up. It wasn't talked about much in the family. Like I'd always known that I was taken, that my family didn't want me to go. And I got this information just from little bits of information that I get from family members when I can. Information came at me at really odd times and just bits and pieces here and there that I would kind of just fumble through and try and put together. And I really didn't understand the concept and the mechanism of the 60s Scoop in my earlier 20s or coming out of university. And then it wouldn't be until later when I started getting into my late 30s and I decided to head back to university because I was struggling with the concept and not knowing entirely my circumstances, the situation, the mechanism that the government was using at the time to put some of these policies forward. As an artist, I have to do a lot of instructing in the schools and motivational speaking. I've taken on a lot of that. And I felt that just my lack of education in those subjects was really putting barriers for me to be able to communicate my message effectively in front of large groups. So I'm a good speaker, but relying on just my charm and that mask wasn't working. So it was like, how can I do this more effectively? So I chose to go back to school and go to university. So I'm still currently have to finish my 4th year of a Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Studies and History. But I knew if I did those subjects and applied those questions that I had in life to my assignments, that it would be like a no-brainer for me to be able to get this information and attain a degree at the same time. Patting myself on the back for getting a degree was like a thing too, because I felt like I had things to prove that I could do it. As an Indigenous person, I can get a degree too. So there were some subtleties of kind of spite and like, I can do this. And like, I really didn't have to because my career in art is good. Like I do well now and I can do it and I love it. So to go back to university was a little bit scary because all that took a back burner. And then my business definitely took a hit. But the reward that I got from my school and those assignments was just incredible because I could finally learn about the 60s Scoop and those policies and how it actually happened and other things besides the 60s Scoop, just Canada's basic history and the history before colonialism. All that stuff has helped so much in my deliverance of my art and its message, and I knew it would. So I was super excited to get back to school to do that so I can better talk about that with the youth and have much more control over my emotions, because not only was I lacking the information, but I didn't have that calmness. You talked about it in your book, and I'm so glad that I got to learn a new word from your book, a couple of them. And I think the word was equanimity.
Oh, wow.
Is
Yeah.
that, I might
Yeah,
pronounce that.
absolutely. I know exactly what you mean, that passage. Yeah.
Just having that kind of ability to be composed and confident and be able to talk through some really tough stuff without getting overly emotional. And, especially in front of the kids, right? Like sometimes I could be in front of, right? One day it's, university students and the next day it's like grade 4s. And it's like, hey, Jay, it's grade 4. Perhaps don't talk about global warming today.
How do you talk to grade 4s about the 60s Scoop? What do you tell them? And I can imagine there would be, there would be a huge ton of emotion attached to that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because they're just so young. Like it took me a while to figure out how to deliver these sorts of things. And I think I'm a lot better at it now, whereas before, you could definitely sense when I was speaking in public that I was getting nervous and didn't quite know how to deliver it. So now it's more of showing the students that I'm happy. And like I say, with the grade 4s and younger grades, it was really important for me just to deliver in a way that you can say, yeah, I have 2 families, and the Lucas family is, I got some really great qualities from my mom, for example. Like I get all my leadership qualities from there, And then I could talk about the other family. So you introduce kind of both families under a really good light, and then explain that unfortunately, government policy at the time didn't allow me to stay with my family, and that's a very complicated thing. And you'll learn about that more as you go through school and as you go through higher grades. You'll get to learn about some of that stuff. It's a bit tough to talk about, I tell them, and sometimes I get emotional, and then I just kind of leave it at that. I don't go too much further into it. Kind of distract them a bit and get them onto the more happy stuff.
You're introducing them to the issue, but you're not taking them too deep. But you're also providing a face and a human, a personification that they can always relate back to. I just wonder how much anger, and this is a huge question, but how much anger have you had to process, and where do you feel you are in that journey? Because I can only imagine. I know as a Canadian, I'm angry and I feel so many emotions about the children who have been found in unmarked graves across the country, for instance, and finding out and now really, I think a lot of Canadians like me are have their eyes open and now want to know more and are on a path of saying, I want to be actively involved in reconciliation. But for someone like you, you've got to deal with that personal anger of how your life trajectory was changed by, as you say, government policy.
Yes, I think as you get older, you kind of gain a little bit more wisdom and patience. And when you're in a leadership role and in really tight circles, you a lot of those conversations can get quite heavy. And if there's not outsiders, but newcomers that are new to that conversation, it's up to us leaders to be able to somewhat recognize that and be able to provide the space to go, okay, I might be at a certain spot in what I think is a good space or whatever in terms of me dealing with these, absorbing these kind of heavy social contexts. But this person might not be, and their learning style can be totally different than mine. So patience and just the ability to listen and go, you know what, this person might need to have their time to be angry. And it might not look at what I assume that might look like. It's going to look different for me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that happens in awkward situations. It might happen in public and it sneaks up on you. And then all of a sudden you're angry. Some of us are a little bit more experienced with it. So we've had these techniques to be able to calm ourselves down when we're getting anxious. It's still a ton of work. Like I still have a ton of work to do. But say for somebody who doesn't have that sort of exposure or communication skills or social skills, it can be very intimidating. And when they're trying to express and be angry, they really need to be able to do that, even if it's in an awkward spot. And to be open to that and to provide that space is key. I have to refer to your book again when one of your friends openly admitted that she was not doing good and that she commented, very honestly in front of a large group of people that, no, I'm not going to go out because of this. And it was like, oh my God, she was blatantly honest. And I think we need to be more like that and patient, especially in those areas, because there's times where that anger, it just comes back, right? It's not something that I don't think entirely goes away, especially when Canada's governments and public institutions still continue to perpetuate some of this Eurocentric kind of white patriarchal stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Canada's doing great in a lot of areas of reconciliation. But for some of us students and critical thinkers, we still see a lot of these mechanisms still operating. So that's frustrating. So when things can continue to happen, that scab or that wound is torn off again for us. And then our walls go up a little bit. As we get older, we get a little bit used to it, but it's not fair to have to get used to that. So we can still have those moments where all of a sudden, wait a sec, I'm angry. And that's where I've had to go, okay, this is making me angry, Jasyn. Take your moment to be angry for 10, 15 minutes. Let it out. Do whatever you got to do. Cry. Go to the gym. But don't take it out into the world with you. That was my mistake, was like, I was getting so angry and irritable over like the smallest things because I could just trace back these unfortunate things to what I thought was always the colonial story. And a lot of it was like, this is not fair and this is why it's happening, especially in Canada, right? That's our story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like constantly getting upset, and it was like, I'm 40 years old now, Jay, and you're such like, you love life, you love people, but you're out driving around, you're upset, you're in traffic, you're swearing, the phone rings, and you're like that instant, like, oh my God, I don't want to answer the phone. When you can be like, oh my God, the phone's ringing. I wonder what's on the other line. Like, there could be opportunity there. So I had to switch everything around and go, okay, you're going to get triggered again. Your trauma isn't something that you have to get over. It's something that you have to get through. It's something that'll come back in small echoes to test you. It was like, I can't continue to carry around this anger. So I'm choosing. You really have to make a choice to be happy. It was just my attitude on things. I had a lot of trauma and things that I was mad about.
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. That was righteous anger, and I am so amazed by you and your journey and your willingness to confront all those feelings, which, as I say, I can only imagine. I'd love to talk about how art has been therapy for you and when that started.
Oh my gosh. Art started for me when I was like in grade 2 on the playground. I used to draw Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man, and I'd give them away on the playground. One day my mom said, stop giving away your drawings. Charge them $0.25, Jasyn. And I did. I was selling drawings in grade 2 during recess for $0.25. And then eventually, as I went up through the grades, my prices went up. I remember the first loonie I got. I was like, oh my God. So not only was art really exciting for me to do in school, like I was always distracted, but I also had I love the attention I got from it. People would gravitate towards me and praise me. My teachers would praise me and give me tons of support. My parents. It was just lovely to have so much attention. And I really craved that because I was quite shy. And growing up and looking back now, I realized, yeah, you struggled to fit in, man. Like, you really did. And I'm so happy that I had this universal language that really reaches like a lot of people. Like, whether you speak the same language or not, I've really discovered that my paintings are like a visual medicine that people want to have in their homes. And what a tremendous gift to be able to think, wow, I have all these paintings that, make people feel great. And, there was times in my career where I was just pumping them out like crazy. I can paint fast and I love it. And I love the challenge of it. I love the business side of it and seeing how much I could sell and, kind of pushing that. And that's where my ego a while back really kicked into overdrive because I wasn't overly educated. I was good at selling art. So I was just like, yeah, let's do this. Whatever we can do, like, yes, yes, yes. Like, let's do it. But then you realize especially now that I'm getting older and I'm really pushing my art to be the best that it can be, that mentality of fast, quick is disappearing. And I really want to slow down, and I can feel my joy and my presence now really starting to enter my paintings. And I think people can start to see that. And I think they will be able to see that when you look back over 20 years of paintings. All the answers are in there. I could see them. I can see when I was stressed. I can see when all the different phases I was going through. There's so many hidden treasures in there, and I just love it. And it hasn't been until recently that I really was kind of disappointed and felt a bit shameful of myself and how I've been so fast paced that I wasn't overly thankful for a lot of things. And I've been thankful for my art, but I don't think I've honored it fully. I'm starting to honor it now a lot more. I would just be at such a fast pace that I wasn't present or thankful. And finally, after some healing, it's not like you ever are fully healed. We can talk about that more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's a path.
I remember having to slow down just a couple months ago, and I really wanted to thank like these plants that I was passing on the road, because I was finally noticing them, and finally noticing that, man, everything's perfect just the way it is. Even though my mind and my attitude can be frustrated sometimes, it's like, Jay, man, like you've been passing all this like for so long, and look at it. It's beautiful. Like, slow down. I'm realizing that it is me. It's all medicine, and it's just such a reward too. And especially with the murals, I know you wanted to talk about that, but the murals
I do.
was like, talk about medicine and so emotional. Holy smokes.
How did that come about? So you've started doing these enormous murals. And actually, before we get to the murals, let's talk about your relationship to the Northern Lights and the theme that is so prevalent through your paintings. When did that start?
Oh, that's a good question. It started a long time ago, probably about 20 years ago. Back then, I was painting kind of a lot of different things as out of art school, and kind of just exploring a bunch of stuff and taking on a bunch of work. So one of my projects was to airbrush a skidoo helmet, and I have this black curtain
Really?
on the back of my wall that I kind of clean out my airbrush on. So I was painting with green, and I was cleaning out my airbrush on this black sheet. And I was like, oh my God, that looks like Northern Lights. And so I just went with it. I've been painting Northern Lights ever since, and every single painting is literally sold. It's been a blessing. It was that action of cleaning out my airbrush. It was like this swooping motion. So it's a very expressive way to paint. And I really love that because it really engaged my whole body. You have to use your whole body to paint. So it can become quite like a dance at times. And I really love that kind of expression. And I think that's where people would see it, is they would see in the flow of the Northern Lights that I was doing, that I was enjoying myself and seeing those colors and seeing that rhythm. And over the years, that confidence and applied training would only strengthen that. So it would snowball, get better, the prices would get increased, the paintings would get better. It just gets better and better. But I'd realized as I went on that this energy that I was getting wasn't entirely mine. And that's where I've had to put my ego aside and go, this isn't a Jasyn thing. This isn't about me or I painted this. I got these messages from the universe. And it sounds cliche. Oh, I'm one with the universe. But as a messenger and as an artist, I certainly am. I have daydreams and night dreams where these things come to me quite clear. I can see them. And a lot of paintings I'll never be able to paint because I have them coming I could see them on the backs of my eyelids all the time. And it's like, this is nuts. But I'm getting these visions from my ancestors. And that's where the Northern Lights come in, because those are our ancestors up there in the Northern Lights. So partly through my healing journey that's ongoing, is I got my Indian name is Standing Buffalo Man and Northern Lights Turtle Man. So that's an incredible honor to carry with me, and to really come to realize that this whole time I've had this army of people with me, helping me, behind me and beside me, and I haven't been alone. I've just been receptive to what's being to what I'm feeling and to what I'm believing in and visualizing. And it's all on a good path, because I'm working closely with my people, with them in my heart and my spirit. So, and you can start to see that in my work, and it's so nice that people see that as medicine, because I struggled so much trying to think growing up. I'm like, am I acting white enough here and fitting in, or am I Indian enough here, feeling out of place, kind of just acting what I should feel like people want me to act like, and I would envy other people who were, say, maybe a traditional powwow dancer, or, medicine. Like, why can't I be Indigenous? Like, am I Indigenous enough? And it's like, yes, Jasyn, you've been perfectly Indigenous enough. And you've been doing it your whole life. You've been so caught up in the noise of it all. But thank God you could feel that. And you really did the hard work to go, something's off, something's wrong. And what's going to save me is education and working on my art, sobriety, physical activity. Like, it was really a big process that started maybe when I was 39, 38. I went, holy smokes, like, I didn't think that life was going to get harder, but it does, and it has. And it's only going to get harder, and it shouldn't be easy. It's just my attitude. It's like, I had a pretty tough hand, but the only one who's going to play it is you, man. You can play it angry, or you can figure this shit out. So.
Oh, you're amazing. And I hear you talking about your collaboration with the universe, and so many artists in the world, whether they're musicians talking about lyrics and music, whether they're artists, whether they're writers, have that same experience of being an instrument through which something is flowing when it's really going well. And I got complete chills when you're talking about collaborating with your ancestors. Like, that just is such a beautiful image. And the idea that they are the wind beneath your wings as you go through this life. And you're playing such an important role out there in the community, helping other people understand your journey and the journey of so many Indigenous Canadians like you. Tell me how the murals came about, because I see you with that image of dancing as painting, and it's on a big scale when you do a big mural.
Yeah, the logistics are crazy. When I first started doing murals, it's probably about 20 years ago too, and we did quite a few in Thompson. And to be invited back after all these years to do more was great, because it kind of took a back burner. Things in communities always go in stages, and you have moments. So the fact that they continue to do these projects is a really great thing. I'm so thankful to be able to do that. The murals, when they came back to me this summer, Oswald Saw from Thompson Neighborhood Renewal in Thompson headed that campaign. So him with a few other organizations came together and got the funds to be able to do 4 large murals in Thompson. So I was very excited to do that, because I haven't done it in a long time. But yeah, the logistics are tough, because in some places the wall's 40 feet high. So I have to get scaffolding, get updated on my safety training, things and such. And then the wall, the weather, oh my gosh, it was raining for the first 10 days. So I was doing like a whole bunch of prep work at all the different sites and waiting for good weather. And then another one of the challenges is I'm right downtown working in the heart of Thompson's downtown. Like Thompson isn't a very big city, maybe 15,000 at most on a busy day, but we service a lot of outlying communities in the north. So it can be really, really busy. And people like to gather there when life's good and it's like you have some money to spend, and Thompson really comes alive. Now, because we're in the north and because there's a whole lot of different implications when it comes to like the social situation and its isolation, that we deal with a lot of the toughest things up in the north in terms of survival. But the impacts of colonialism, you can feel it deeply because of we're surrounded by outlying reserves and communities. And with that comes a lot of those, a wide variety of people on different parts of their journey in terms of healing with their trauma and their stories, their individual stories. So when I'm working downtown in that heart of that area downtown, I get to see a ton of the locals, but a ton of the people from other communities. And a lot of them too are, like I said, they can be in a very tough spot in terms of their journey and addiction. So working in amongst them 12 to 14 hours a day can be tough because everybody wants to talk to you. It's very exciting what they see.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing one of their members doing something that's really bright and exciting. So they want your attention. And when you're 4 stories up on scaffolding and people are yelling at you like, hey, what are you doing? You're kind of like, just trying to stay alive. Stop yelling at me.
I'm curious as to how love is showing up in your life right now. When just like word association, when you think about love, what does it mean to you in your life?
Oh my God, love, it's always been there. Right now, it's just flowing through my attitude, and it has to, because I would find stress in almost everything because I always felt behind the gun, where I haven't quite reached this goal over here, which looks like a straight line to me, but it's actually a big old curvy road, so I have to go, well, wait a sec. I've been surrounded by like such amazing things, whether it's my art or my music or my family. But I've constantly just focused on that struggle and like, oh my God, I'm so tired and poor me. And it's like, no, man, everything's been there, bright as day in front of you, a bunch of lovely, lovely gifts. And it was your attitude that held you back. And now I just try to look like my phone example earlier, how I used to despise like the phone going off. It's like, no, this is your business, answer it, like this is your music.
Let's talk about when you connected with your birth family.
Well, it's about 17 years old, and I was going through kind of a tough time in my later teen years, being kind of a brat and a skateboarder and a rebel and all that sort of stuff. And I wanted to know those answers, and my mom, Wendy, helped me out a lot with that. She's just wonderful with that sort of stuff. And she had reached out. When we looked on my adoption papers from when I was part of the Sixties Scoop, interestingly enough, they were all photocopies of my records. But my last name was whited out on all of them. So you could see that the information in terms of my dad's name and family names was all whited out. So that was a little weird to see. It was kind of an interesting document. And I know we noticed after looking at them that through the rushing process, they didn't white out in parts the first letter of the last name and in some parts the last letter. So we discovered that my last name started with a B and ended with a Y. So in northern Manitoba, that either makes you a beardy or a biggity. So
wow, you're kidding. First of all, I'm reeling because of the symbolism of your name being whited out. Like, holy cow.
I know. And, that was
Takes your
initially
breath
going to be
away.
the name of my book because it seemed so clever. The whited out part is quite a.
Yeah.
But, now that I'm moving forward in kind of a different way, I could see that title maybe changing to lighted out.
So how did you find them?
My mom made a call. Somehow she got a hold of my birth mom. And yeah, it was like, this happened really quick. And she's like, yeah, we did this. And then I had a conversation with her on the phone, and she was quite distraught, of course, because she was upset and a whole bunch of emotions. Unfortunately, my mom passed away before I had a chance to meet her. Same with my birth father. So that's a pretty a tough thing for me to swallow sometimes, because I do feel as I grew up, I missed that. I missed that connection that you could possibly only have with your birth mom. So I don't know entirely what's that like, but I do feel like I miss her.
So you had a conversation with her, but didn't actually get to meet her in person. So
Correct.
what did you feel like you made a connection during that conversation?
My mom, she struggles in her life with some challenges and stuff. So I felt with that conversation, it was tough because it was hard for her to hold herself together, and myself as well. I was quite emotional, but she was very, very emotional, and I can only imagine why. So it was a very tough conversation to have. I did
And
not.
you were still young.
Yeah, I was
right?
still
You
quite
were
young.
still a kid.
Yeah. So I came away from that, at the time I was like, yeah, kind of like whatever. I was 18, partying and busy just being 18. So it didn't seem like, I seemed like, oh, I could get through this. I'm a lone wolf. And I kind of embraced that. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm good. I'm tough. But as you get older, you realize, I'm missing these things. So eventually, yeah, I would, I'd meet. I got to meet my brother and my sister at my mom's funeral, and a lot of my aunties and stuff. And that was kind of a nice blessing in disguise. It was really nice to meet them. They were all really, really nice. Some of them I keep in touch with, but I'm still getting like tidbits of information. There's a lot of empty spaces, empty gaps, things I don't know. And I think for me, like, I'm at the point where there are things that I will find out, and there's some things that I won't, and I'm at the point where that's okay.
I was wondering if Beauty from Trauma would be a suitable title for this episode.
Oh my
Does
God.
that resonate with you?
I like that. That's lovely.
Because you really, somehow the beauty that you put out into the world is informed by, your traumatic past, but also the beauty of your soul.
Thank you very much. I have to extend my thanks to the great circles that I've had. I've had tough moments, and regardless what I was going through and continue to go through, they've been there for me and cheering for me. And I know I haven't been easy the whole time, so I can't thank them enough. It really helps to have great supports and awesome circles like these just to be a part of. So thank you very, very much. You're certainly a part of that.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the way in which you're showing up in the world. You are a teacher and you're a healer, and you're putting so much beauty into the world. So, Jasyn, I want to say thank you. And I guess my last question is, how do you feel about that? About being so appreciated by so many people?
Oh my gosh. It's lovely. It's overwhelming. Sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around. There's so many great circles, and it's so nice that to be part of your circle and to have this sort of platform to be able to share that story is, thank you so much. It means a lot to me, and I know it'll mean a lot to my communities and my family. Big shout out to my family for sure. Both of them. The Lucas family is wonderful, and the Biggity family is wonderful. I can't express that enough.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.